here to discuss all things NRL and anything sports related. Please give a warm Aussie g'day to the footy fanatic and America's own Corey Jackson in Outside the Sheds.
Greetings and salutations and welcome back to Outside the Sheds. Shedders, I was thinking how to start this current episode of Outside the Sheds, and besides us talking about our blood pressures last week as we go down this road towards the finals, I thought what better way to also describe where we're at than go see the Odyssey with the lovely Mrs. Shedadamus last Friday on the biggest IMAX screen in the state that I reside in. If you've listened to the show enough, you know what state I reside in, and yeah, that's what we're on right now. We're on a trip like this. Now, we don't have Cyclops, and we don't have any type of sorceresses, witches, if you want to call them, turning us into pigs or anything like that. But this journey that we're all on together, we're going to lose some people. Let me just put it that way. And the people we're going to lose is teams. We lost the Brisbane Broncos. There goes another one of our soldiers as we go back home to Ithaca. But I digress. Let's not go into my movie reviews. We're thinking about starting a whole new podcast about your Shedadamus in the movies, but that's something different. But we will lose people. And we lost a champion. Matter of fact, the first team that we've lost to not making it to the finals, as I try to run that sentence together, since the West Tigers won the premiership, won the title in 2005, and didn't make the finals the next year. That's right, it's been that long. Benji was so young that he actually almost had a perm. That's how long ago it was. Nothing against it. You know, I think he's the great one, the gazelle. But that's a long time ago. So we lost one, right? And we're probably going to have some others dropping off this week. So we're on the Odyssey. We're on a trip right now trying to get home, which would be the grand final. October 4th, I think? No, don't get upset with me down under. I know it's a different day for you, but I think it's October 4th for me. All right. Before we can get on our trip, and let me before I go farther, how can you have a movie called The Odyssey without Achilles? I'm very, very confused about that. I really enjoyed the movie, but how is my boy Achilles not in that? All right, I'm done. Round 22 was something special. We'll go back. We went 4 for 8. We're 50%. As good as me in algebra class, but that's something else. But 86 of 134, 64%. So we're still way above the Mendoza line. We're good there. And if you don't know what the Mendoza line is, talk to Katie. Now, we went into round 22 thinking that we were going to go right off the chute. The chute was going to open up, and it was going to be like 8 seconds. It was going to be a bullfight. And, well, we had Cowboys, so, Cowboys ride bulls. That's what we thought we were going to get when the Chooks and the Cowboys came in. The Cows coming off their massive victory of the Queensland Derby, destroying the Broncos, and pretty much ending their titles hopes last week, but became official in 22. And then the Chooks, would that offense really start firing? Were they going to show, it was going to be tough to go up to Townsville. The dew points are different, all that type of stuff. Well, we sure got that one, didn't we? Roosters 82, Cowboys 12. The Chooks go up to Townsville. They embarrass the Cows. Not just beat the Cows, embarrass the Cows. The most first half points a team has ever put in NRL history on a club. That's how much of a beatdown that was. And I really sat back that entire match and was just in awe of what I was seeing. And I gotta admit, I will say this. I don't say that I feel sorry for a lot of people. Mrs. Shedadamus says I have to work on that. I don't feel sorrow often for people because normally I think 91% of the problems we all run into are self-caused, right? Okay. So I don't feel sorry for many people. I felt horrible for Todd Payton. That had to be the longest, 80 minutes of a coach's life. Okay, maybe there's 2 other coaches that had worse time, but we're not talking about them this week. Since there's only been 3 teams that get beat down like that in the history of the game, I felt sorry for him. I would say that Todd was going to lose hair, but he doesn't have any hair to lose. But I guarantee you that great manicured beard got a little bit more gray. That was horrible. I can't even put into words how bad that was. Now, if you're a Chooks fan, like some of the people in Sydney who think that I don't like the Roosters, which is a total fabrication, fake news, yeah, you feel very, very good. But that was just... And, we're going to talk about Hollywood Walker here in a second, because I'm going to do some talking about some halves here when I go in the deep dive about this round. But, Hollywood Walker, the crazy thing about this is Teddy didn't even play the second half, and they did that. All right? Teddy didn't even play the second half. Todd Payton's coming out now saying, one game does not make a team season or break a team season, which is 100% true. But you cannot give up 82 points at home. You just can't, And what was it saying? If a team allows 50, they don't win. If you give up 82, does that mean you don't win this year and the next year? It was really, really bad. But anybody who says that the Chooks can't score points now, I think you're crazy. Because this team proved that, yes, it was a short week for the Cows after a huge match. And, we've got to talk about that just for a brief second. That is the biggest match for the Cows on their schedule, is whenever they take care and fight the Brisbane Broncos, right? It's the Queensland Derby. A short week. They're feeling good about themselves. Yeah, you can kind of see why they might have had a little bit of a letdown. But there's a little bit of a letdown and there's total destruction. There's total annihilation. And that's what that was. So, yeah, I understand Cows fans where you're coming from when you try to tell me that. But that was bad. That was very, very bad. So, we'll see. They have a chance for redemption. We've got another Queensland Derby with them and the Titans coming up to kick off round 23. But, boy, if you could forget round 22. The question is, does Todd Payton show any type of video from that? Or does he try to act like it didn't exist? It's like a Zapruder film. It never really happened. I don't know. It was really, really bad. But the Chooks going up and beyond taking care of business. Dolphins 28, Dragons 22. The Finns going down to Wollongong. And they run into a red V that should be almost called red arst. And what I mean by that is St. George they're not winning games. But they are fighting everybody tooth and nail to get to the loss column. They really are. I know it's been a tough season. And don't forget, Dragons fans, you could be Tigers fans right now. Don't ever forget that. At least your team fights to the end. Especially since the coaching change. They've really played for Dean Young. But wow, I know it's got to get heartbreaking because they're right there in it. Towards the end, man. They're fighting tooth and nail. But then you look at the Dolphins. It's got to be strange because, Cody Nicarima signing the deal last week that he's going to be a Dragon next year, and then the next team up that he's going to play is the team he just signed for next season. Well, that's how crazy for us that are over here in the divided states see this. Signing contracts while you're already playing for another team, but you're playing for that team next year. A little different for us. I don't know will that ever make any sense to me or be something that I'm like, oh yeah, whatever. But Nicarima played well. The Dragons, these are the type of matches why some people still have the Finns, the Dolphins as a smoky. Because these are the type of matches that sometimes trip teams up. And they find a way, and don't forget, they gave up 66 points just a couple weeks ago. They're still trying to, They don't have Katoa back yet. They're still not their best team right now, but they get the victory, right? And that is, to me, what's so important about this team. And why they might have a deep... I don't really see the Dolphins being the juggernaut in the finals like some people do see them being. I do know they have strike. I know they have some playmakers. The entire country of Australia is in love with Herbie Farnsworth, and he's a good player. Not condemning Herbie. But, it is what it is. But they do show that they had a little mental toughness because the Dragons didn't make it easy on them. And they go down to Wollongong and get the victory. So good job, Dolphins. Bulldogs 36, Storm 22. Even though the Dogs faced an ambush, because the Storm, that was almost like the Texas Rangers going into the Canyon and Butch Cassidy, Butch Cavendish. Butch Cassidy would be somebody else. Butch Cavendish and all of the Outlaws being there and taking out all the Rangers but the Lone Ranger, right? That's what that kind of felt like. It felt like this was a trap game. This was a Storm team that was going to be up to play. They knew the Dogs were playing with, some of their better football, and they came at them. The Storm, I know Bellyache really wanted that victory. They couldn't make it happen, but he has to be proud of the young guys that stood up and really tried to take it to the Dogs. It was a good match. It really was. I enjoyed it, and I still can't believe Critter's playing in the halves. And I think Crichton's getting more and more comfortable week in and week out that he continues to play in that jersey. But it is strange to see him. But he is that guy. The more that he touches the ball, the better that team gets. And they continue to get that way. I'm very interested to see, we're going to talk about that here in a second too when we go in the 40-20, how this team matches up with their round 23 opponent. Hint, hint. It's going to be fun to talk about here in a second. But big victory for the Bulldogs. A lot like the Dolphins. Very much a trap game. But they got out of the ambush, and they left with more Rangers than the Lone Ranger did. Warriors 42, Titans 6. Unfortunately for the Titans, they had to play a Waz team that was probably beyond angry. At the performance that they had in Sydney against the Dogs the week before, you had to feel for Henny's boys because you knew. I know a lot of people were drinking the Kool-Aid of the Titans, and it's not that the Titans haven't been playing good ball, but you had to know, watching the Waz play all season, knowing that the stands were going to be 60% at least Waz fans at Seabus, this was not going to be good. And they proved it. Tay-Marie Martin has a double. This team was angry. And this is the difference between the Waz team of 2026 and some Waz teams that we've seen before in the past. Because sometimes with these road trips they do, or these fights or whatever, or these extended stays that they do in Sydney, you see them lose 2 or 3 games in a row. But that's not the case anymore. This team has the perfect type of leadership. They have an inner belief that maybe some Waz teams haven't had before in the past. But they were not going to lose 2 in a row. And they definitely weren't. And the crazy thing about this is just the last, 3 or 4 years, the Titans have a winning record against the Waz. That wasn't going to be the case. It wasn't going to be the case this time. It was all one-way traffic. The Titans are just lucky they got the one try. But like I said, the Warriors could have looked ahead at coming home and playing the Panthers and totally looked past the Titans. Did not happen whatsoever. Waz getting a big victory, setting up the match against the team we're talking about right now, the Miracle of Mudgee, Panthers, Raiders. Boy, we did not get a Miracle of Mudgee this year, did we? Because the Panthers 42, Raiders 18, no miracle. No miracle whatsoever. Probably the only miracle was that Mudgee was packed. That town, what is it, grow in size when they have an NRL game like this come to town? And I got to tell you something right now. The Panthers looked good. The new halves combo between Cleary and Cogger, they were locked in. They were solid. Milky Jenkins getting a double. I shouldn't be this way, and I think a lot of us shouldn't be this way. But my God, the Panthers just impress different week in and week out. Some way they make you look and go, wow. I've been thinking, you know what? I'm sitting Blaze. I don't like the way the defensive line has been working with him in there. Let's bring Jack Cogger in there. I know him and Nathan can kind of work well together. And lo and behold, it's magic, right? Matter of fact, we got more running yards out of Nathan than we've had for weeks. Like, he just attacked and ran. There was just like pressure off him. So big victory for the Panthers. And again, not looking ahead to next week. They went down there. They probably were so tired of hearing the term miracle and Mudgee. They just wanted to make sure this wasn't even in the context going forward. Done. Put to bed. Knights 30, Broncos 6. Sharp and Marju both getting doubles. And the Knights. We're talking about teams showing steel, right? Well, we got to see a team, and look at me going that with a hard-working, working company and family that is the Newcastle Knights using steel. No, and I mean this. Under Holbrook, there's a total different mentality with the Knights. And losing Lucas and Brown last week, they could have, I don't want to say they could have given up on the season, but by every means, this team could have hung their head a little bit, maybe started thinking what could have been. But I've said this time and time again on different episodes of this podcast this year. What Justin Holbrook has had this team go back. He's got them in the community. He has them going down to the coal mines, seeing what hard work looks like, right? And finding that steel, finding that inner fortitude. And that's exactly what Newcastle is showing right now. I'm saying this team could have easily, Brisbane hasn't had the season anybody thought they were going to have. But they're still the Brisbane Broncos. Last time I checked, Reece Walsh is still over there, right? And I know they lost Adam Reynolds again, but, Ezra Mam is there. There's a lot of good players in that side. And the Knights they said, you know what? This team shouldn't be running with us right now. And they proved it. Impressive victory. And I'm so happy for the fans of the Hunter because this team is going to have to fight for the rest of the season. Kalen Ponga said that in an interview before the match, that they know what they have to do, but they have to go out there and perform and do it. And I think Kalen was kind of talking to himself when he said that because I think he knows in the past this team has let up at times and maybe hasn't finished strong at times. I don't think we're going to get this. I don't think Holbrook will allow that type of just kind of lackadaisical belief or emotion to go through this club whatsoever. He's getting them up, and they're looking strong. And again, putting the Broncos to bed for the season. Sharks 32, Rabbitohs 16. The Hines rebirth continues. 32 consecutive kicks. He's 3 away from El Masri for breaking the record, I think. It's just, this team right now, since the bye, has just been lights out. And again, we're going to talk about the Halves here right now in this deep dive coming up. But the Sharks, man, I started thinking about that this last week. 10-year anniversary of their turning the porch lights off in Cronulla. It's this year. The old boys were just back for that 2016 team. A week or two ago, I saw Chetty Townsend in the crowd. This team is showing that maybe those porch lights might be coming on a little bit here soon, if you know what I mean. Because Cronulla, to me, has a shot. They have a real shot at winning this thing. So, but you got to take care of business, and that is what they're doing. And this is a hungry Rabbitohs team. Now, I know South Sydney fans, don't get mad at me. I know this is a team that right now is playing under a cloud of injury. Good news is you've got players coming back this week. But Sharks, when you had to take care of business, they're taking care of business. And Fitzy is going to keep them dialed in because they don't have a tough road coming home. But they're going to have to stay on point. But big victory there. And finally, to end the round, Eels 16, Tigers 13. In a game that saw the teams combine for 34 errors. Let me say that again. 34 errors combined for these two clubs. It was almost like they had I don't know, I've never played the game, but it's just a saying of hot potato, where they have a scalding baked potato and they're throwing it back and forth because no one wants to hold on to it too long. That's what that game was like. People kept dropping the ball like it was a hot potato. It was tough to watch. Now, as bad as the first half was, the second half got a little interesting, got a little exciting. And, if you're a blue and gold fan, leave me alone, Dom. They snatch the victory out of the Tigers' hands. Tigers thought they had it after Dewey put them up. And then Mitch Moses leads them down the field. Niangi gets the try to seal that bad boy and get a 3-point victory. And look, only the Tigers could lose a game by 3 where they would have to score a try and a 2-point field goal would be totally out of the equation, right? Just the year that they had. I will say maybe the game is different if Dewey plays the way that he played in the second half and the first half. But either way, the Tigers continue to find ways to lose matches. I think, and don't quote me, Shedheads, I think that the Eels had 41% completion percentage in the second half. I think that's what it was. Either way, they still won the game with that. I don't know. I don't even know what to say, except, hey, the Tigers can't lose this week. That's what I can say. They can't lose this week. They got to bye. There you go. Now, as we go into the deep dive, I started to think, and I started looking at the numbers, and I looked at the teams. And I know we went over the ladder a few weeks ago, but we all know that teams that finish in the top 4 are 95% chance and probability of winning the whole thing. And it's just because you have to play one less match when you're in the top 4 compared to the teams that are 5 through 8. It's just, by the time we get to the back end of the season like this, these guys are all beat up. They're all feeling the pain. And when that day arrives, it's usually 2 top 4 clubs that are playing for the whole kit and caboodle, right? And for these teams, and when you start looking at the teams that usually make it there, they have stellar halves play. And it's kind of like if you look at the gridiron or the NFL over here in the divided states, you usually don't see 2 teams get to the Super Bowl that don't have stellar quarterback play, right? And I always compare, and I talk to a bunch of people in America when I try to explain the game, or people that don't know the game of rugby league. I always say rugby league is like you have 2 quarterbacks. You have your 5/8, you have your halfback, right? So you have 2 guys kind of doing that position of conducting and leading the team down the field. Well, in gridiron or NFL, you have a quarterback, and that's his job. So halves play is everything, and you do not see usually a team lift trophies at the end of the season unless they have incredible halves play or quarterback play, right? But usually the dominant team with the dominant halves are the ones standing when all the smoke clears, and usually that's after the fireworks shows, after they win the grand final. And I started looking at the top 4 clubs right now, and we started off with Team 1, and everybody knows who that is, the Penrith Panthers. And everybody knows, can I say that one more time? Everybody knows the Iceman of cometh, Nathan Cleary. The best player in the game, and being the best player in the game, which transfers to also being the best half in the game. The apex predator of the halves, as we say. I love that word, apex. It's one of my favorite. But, with those bad memories at the Miracle and Mudgee and Nathan playing with his helmet on and somehow finding a way to hit the post, any normal player, after watching and listening to these clips, and that's why smart players do not have social media. They aren't watching Fox Footy, 9, whatever the heck you were. They're trying to stay in their zone, right? But Nathan, being the Iceman, instead of getting in his head and trying to not think about that, he did what Nathan does and what earned him that name, the Iceman. Because even with Jack Cogger being inserted in and kind of changing his halves combination without Blaise Talangi, it almost seemed like Nathan was reborn. And I know I love that too, because people just keep getting reborn in this time of the year. But he had a rebirth in his running game with Cogger in there. And it was a Nathan that we have not seen much this season. And I don't know, is it because with his new pair with Blaise, he thinks that he's got to do things a little bit differently? He's got to protect him maybe a little bit, and that wasn't the case at all. Those stats, 7 for 7 for conversions, 132 running meters, 1 line break, 4 line break assists, 3 try assists, 3 tackle breaks, 16 tackles, and 484 kicking meters. That was wow stuff, right? And one of the cool things about the breakdown of the halves that I'm getting ready to do for you right now is you'll see that pretty much every single one of these guys had big-time games, right? They had big-time games for their clubs this last weekend. And they needed to, right? But that is what I'm saying again. You have to have stellar halves play if you're going to go in. And you're going to win this thing. And I will say this. It's not often where you see what we saw last year when the Brisbane Broncos won it all, that it was Reece Walsh who just had a cape on his back and was everywhere, doing everything, right? Like he just willed his team. That's why some people think that run he took the Broncos on for one individual player to carry that much weight for that long is almost unheard of. And that might be the fact. I still say Nathan's performance in that grand final against the Broncos when he just came alive the last 20 minutes and won and helped them win the trophy and win the grand final was the greatest thing I've seen since I've watched the game. But you've got to have those guys. And it's usually those halves because they were going to touch the ball the most, right? But, you know, that type of performance that we saw with Nathan, the way that he's, and I'm going to say this right now, nothing against Blaise Talangi, but if you get Nathan freed up and he feels like he can play free-flowing football the way that he did, and the footy just stays on him, and his passing and his control, the dummy passes, he looked like the game had slowed down for him, which is scary, which is very, very scary for the competition. But if Jack Cogger brings that, takes the pressure off him about having maybe to kick on the fifth tackle, that both guys can do that. Both of them can dictate traffic a little bit. This is scary. And to me, this is also why the Panthers are still the favorite to win this whole thing, because you got the Iceman. And I really do think Jack Cogger has the potential to not give up that 6 jersey the whole rest of the season. He's a 10-year vet. He's been playing for a while. I really like his pairing. Even though I thought Blaise Talangi was going to be better, and I even predicted that earlier in the year. I thought by the back end of the season, the game was going to slow down for him. But it just didn't. His defense is just, and I know he scored a try in the New South Wales Cup, but you've got to play different defense at this level. And Cogger provides that. And Cogger also, like I said, helps the reins leave Nathan and lets him go out there and be the Nathan Cleary that we all want to see. So that is why they're my favorites. Team 2, the Chooks. Now, nothing says show me the money more than helping your side score 82 points. Nothing at all. That was, again, we're not going to go into that debacle that we saw, but Hollywood Walker made a huge statement. He made a huge statement to his wallet in his contract negotiations, and he made a huge statement to the game of rugby league, because going up there, having a hat trick, and driving that offense around the field like they were a fine European sports car, that'll do things for you. I will say this, and I'm going to stand by this, coming out of Origin, Sam Hollywood might be the player that we see taking that first Origin blooding and going forward with it and really doing something special with it. Because since he's come back, I think I've seen more menace in his eye. I've seen more acid in his tongue, meaning that I've seen him light into teammates. I think him yelling at Marky Mark to get into position on one of his kicks recently says a lot about this guy. And it's not, and I will say this too, I think it's very, very important. A lot of people think that the numbers for DC, Daly Cherry Evans, haven't been off the charts, right? Okay, Daly Cherry Evans is 87 years old, but besides that, I think what Daly Cherry Evans is doing for Hollywood Walker, Sammy Walker, whatever you want to call him, is he's helping the game slow down for the way that he sees it. People have always said that Sam Walker's field vision, his field general stuff, is light years ahead of what his real age is. But you always have to have a mentor. You always have to have that person that helps you continue to study and to see other aspects of the game. And I really think that DCE has provided that to him a lot. And there's steps when you talk about halfbacks and you talk about these guys. And the first step that most of them all want to do is represent their state, right? So after getting his call up to the Maroons, the next thing that he's got to check off the list now is having a deep run in the finals. Because that's what's expected of him. Because that's the only thing holding him back from getting. Now, the big talk is with him is, do we give him a 10-year contract? And I, like most people, think that is kind of insane. Nothing against you, Dylan Brown. But I think a 10-year contract is insane. Number one, why, if you're a player, would you want to sign a 10-year contract, knowing how with the TV rights deals and all the different money changing, would you want to get locked in for 10 years? Because this game is only going to get bigger. I'm saying we're heading towards 20 teams. So revenue sharing and all this type of stuff is going to change. And because of that, players' contracts are going to change and get more. So you only want to sign a 4 or 5 year contract, because if you lock yourself in at 10, even if you're getting $1 million and some change on that, it could be close to 2 in 5 years if you're that guy, if you're that important to a team. But they're not going to sign you to a $2 million contract now. So yes, I understand he's playing for that contract, and I think he's going to get paid. He's going to get paid well. But you got to have a deep run into the finals for Sam Walker. And that's one of the things that's I think the pressure that he's feeling a little bit, and maybe why you see him a little bit more agitated, because he's learned what it's like to play with the best players playing in the state of origin. He's had success, especially in games 1 and 2. And I think that he knows that looking at DCE, he sees what it looks like to be at the end of the career. And, DCE only has, one grand final. So, yeah, he sees what the future can possibly look like, and he knows where he needs to be. And if you remember, I think he's older than what DCE was when he won his championship. So, there's a lot on this young man's, on his chest, on his back, whatever you want to say. He's carrying a lot of weight. But to me, no matter how well the Chooks are playing right now, no matter how much they are chasing the Panthers, being 2 points back right now, the problem they have isn't the players on the field, is what they are going up against if they want to get to the promised land. Because unfortunately for the Chooks, they have a 1-5 record against Penrith in the last 5 years. Let's get that. Let's say that one more time. A 1-10 record in the last 5 years under Robbo against the Panthers. And I think most of us all know the team that, quote unquote, is going to lift this is going to have to go through the pink and black. Just going to. They're going to have a chance in round 24 to change that conception, that thought process. But at this current juncture, they're not there yet. So, yes, Hollywood Walker looking great, but the boogaboo is still in the room, and they're still going to have to get past the Panthers. Team 3, the Waz. All right. We are, everybody's second favorite team, the New Zealand Warriors. We know the one thing about the Waz is they are probably the wild card in this whole equation that we're talking about, right? We got Vegas coming up. We all love wild cards, right? That is something that can change your fortunes, and it can sometimes dethrone your fortunes. But of all the teams in the top 4, the biggest wild card is Tamari Martin for the Waz. And he's the most non-glamorous of all the players and the halves that we have remaining in the top 4. But against the Titans last weekend, he had a bounce back game. 2 tries, 2 line breaks, 1 line break assist, 1 try assist, 4 tackle breaks. A good response after a subpar game against the Bulldogs. A lot of people, myself not included, have forgotten how good this guy is. Now, my Mrs. Shedadamus says that I have a sickness, and that is remembering things that blow her away, like, where's that staying? And I said, well, I just kind of kick out the other stuff that doesn't mean anything to me in my mind. But I remember this young man, right? And the problem for sports fans is sports fans have some of the worst memories ever. Okay? You remember a few stats about your favorite teams, but everything else gets flushed down the toilet. But if you don't, 2017 is emblazoned in my mind because when I see something special, I remember it. The Cows are not my team, right? But I love to watch them play a lot of times because sometimes you have no idea what you're going to get. But 2017 is Tamery Martin's defining moment because he gets traded halfway through the season up to the Cowboys, and then he goes on to pair with Michael Morgan, who I met in Vegas this last year, which was a funny story. I should go into it, but Michael Morgan, really cool guy. But he and Michael Morgan pretty much led with Tamalolo down the tracks, went in there, took the Cowboys to the grand final. They lost, yes, but that season, coming in halfway through the season, in 12 games, Tamery Martin had 6 tries, 4 try assists, 8 line breaks, 5 line break assists, 47 tackle breaks. All with a team he didn't have a preseason with. Think about that. All of this he did with a team he had no preseason with. He had no chance to build chemistry. He came in and out of his raw talent and knowledge in the play of the game. And you could see that with 47 tackle breaks, what this guy can do, right? And it was a gut-wrenching time when he had to give the game up and had to retire because of that brain bleed. It just, no one wants to see a player's career cut short, let alone from an injury that just guts you, right? And it's scary because anytime you're dealing with your brain, it's scary. So a lot of things that make him a wild card are different than any of these other players because he's seen the end of his career not be the end of his career because he's back. And he's playing with house money. He's playing with house money in the standpoint that he shouldn't even be playing the game in some people's minds. Or they didn't see him ever coming back. And so when the season starts and everyone's talking about, Tanner Boyd, they're talking about, all the other Chanel Harris DeVita, Metcalf, all these halves are in front of him. Instead, who's the one still standing right now? Tanner Boyd, injured, falls off. Metcalf, injured, now can't even find his way into the side. And all of a sudden now, the partnership that no one thought we were going to see, Tamery Martin, Chanel Harris DeVita, they just work so well together. It's, again, to me, it's the thing no one expected, but maybe the reason the Waz are where they are right now. Because of the play of these two guys together and how well they play together. I will say this again. The success that Tamery Martin's having right now couldn't help into a better guy. Of all the people that I've met over the last 4 years in Vegas, humble, friendly, you would probably have no idea that he's an NRL player. He's not the biggest guy whatsoever. But just the joy of me coming up and talking to him, he was so happy. I'm so happy. And I keep saying happy about it is because it is such a feel-good story. But he is the wild card in this. And it is going to be fine and fun and all of the above when we get to see the Iceman the guy that everyone says is the apex, up against the wild card this weekend. Because right now it's a pick'em game, and I don't even know who I'm picking. Because both of these teams match up so well together, and if we don't forget, it's just going to be magical. It's going to be a magical Friday. It's going to be a magical game, which we're about ready to talk about in the 40-20. Now, Team 4, up. I'm right now, you can't see me, but I'm wagging my fingers right now. I got those spirit fingers going. And it is the Cronulla Sharks. And the thing that I say about the Cronulla Sharks is the Phoenix Reborn. And we're not talking about the new Michael Crichton movie. No, we're talking about Nico Hines. And as much as I'm happy for, like I said, Tay Marie Martin earlier, what makes me happy for Nico Hines is that a lot of people have put Nico Hines to bed. A lot of people are very, very quick to say that Tricky Trendle, who's played incredible ball this year. I'm not saying that he's not. But I've also said, and I've also stood next to Tricky, and I'm taller than Trindle, and you're like, wow, this guy, to say that he is playing way above what his physical stature allegedly is supposed to be, and I know it's the new haircut. I know what the truth is. We all do. But Nico Hines is a big dude. I'm saying he's not Payne Haas, but he's a solid guy, right? And what more thing can say rebirth and your game is on top of it than kicking 32 straight? And if that's not enough for you, how about you're leading the offense that has scored 194 combined points in their last 5 games? 194. Cronulla right now is a runaway freight train. What's the problem for the rest of the competition, the top 4, is the Cronulla has the easiest schedule of all the teams in the top 4 for the rest of the season. They don't play any teams in the top 8 on their remaining schedule. The toughest part that they're going to have right now is Fitzy trying to keep that team focused, right? And to me, that all comes down to Nico Hines. Because one of the things Nico has done with this whole rebirth, yes, the kicking has been incredible. Yes, the running has been incredible, which we've missed a lot. Nico has come back a lot more physical. Physical in the way he's attacking the line. Physical in the way that he's following through on his kicks. He's not kicking hesitantly whatsoever. He's driving the ball. He's putting curve. But it's all with purpose. But to me, it's his defense. Nico is now hitting with an edge. He's playing physical, which we've never seen. I don't want to say that Nico was a timid player, but he has got an edge to him. Even when he was being interviewed on the Matty John show, and he just has an edge about him. And I talked about this last week. I think I said something like, yeah, when you finally get settled in your home life, that'll do that to you. But the other thing having a strong home life is somebody gives you confidence that believes in you. Because if they didn't believe in you, they wouldn't get married to you. So there's so much going right for Nico right now. And I really get a little frustrated. I'm a little confused when a lot of these pundits don't even have them as a true title team that could really go in there and finish this thing off. They think they're going to fly by the wayside. They think the Waz and they think that the Sharks are going to fall off the wayside. And this is a 2-team race. And you're crazy if you think that. You're crazy. Because I think all 3 of these teams, and you see I said 3 because to me, the Panthers are in the box seat, right? The Panthers are going to be there. But any one of these 3 teams that we're talking about right now, I think could play the Panthers in the grand final. And I do think it's a 4-team race right now. I'm sorry about that 5 through 8, but I do think that it is a 4-team race. And let's also remember, I'm not going to pat myself on the back right now. Okay, I might, but we're not there yet. I did pick a Penrith Cronulla grand final to start the season. Go back and look at the tapes. Look at those darn tapes. Let's go back to listen to my first podcast. I said that I think that Penrith and the Sharks were going to play in the grand final. So I'm on pace for at least both of these teams right now. And I do not see the Sharkies falling off, and it's because of the Phoenix himself. I think Nico Hines is going to get them to the promised land and play the Iceman when it's all said and done. Now, as we go into the 40-20, I said this last week, Shedheads. I was concerned about everyone's blood pressure. With these blockbuster matches, we just keep getting them week in and week after week after week. And it feels like for the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've had that one game where you're like, oh boy, what are we going to get from this? And then we have that haymaker match that we don't see coming, that we're like, did that just happen, right? So to say that our blood pressure has been through the roof has been an understatement that I have really said time and time again. But I'll say this right now. Unfortunately, your doctor bills are going to go up this Friday, in a matter of days. And also, we might have some cardiac arrest situations right on tap. That's right. I would have your heart monitors on, because the matchup that we're getting in a doubleheader, so say matchups, are just off the hook. We are so set up for incredible footy. I can't almost contain myself. And the reason that this is a problem for yours truly is to say that unfortunately your Shedadamus will be going to sleep when it's probably already light outside again for me. Yeah, that's going to be the case. We've got some games, man, and it kicks off 5 p.m. I think for a lot of you down under. Well, let me help you out with 5 p.m. for you guys. It's 3 a.m. for me. So 3 a.m. I will be sitting up with two of my loyal dogs and watching the Panthers and the Waz. It's crazy that this is 13 weeks ago, or round 13, so not 13 weeks ago, but round 13. We might easily have a contender for match of the year when these two teams combined. We got a 2018 score, and the Panthers prevailed. But there was one caveat that made that game a little different, is the Panthers found a way to win the game by 2, but they did it without Cleary. So if you look on that game right there that we're talking about, the Waz had a perfect opportunity to beat Penrith without their best player, and they couldn't get it done. So now you cut ahead, which I cannot believe that was 2 months ago. Yeah, let's not even get into that right now. But the Iceman is back. Cleary is back. He knows what this game means. You know, heck, his brother's going to be sitting there watching the game because he plays for the Waz, right? He understands what this is, which makes Penrith the stronger team. Cleary's in. But the environment is going to be a lot different compared to round 13. Because they're going to have to go on the road and get the victory in the Rumble Islands, all right? And that is not an easy thing right now, because the Waz are defending the island, right? They're defending the country. They're 5-2 at home this season. And crazy, one of those losses is to the Tigers. But they're 5-2 at home. So there's a lot that rides on this game. And that is, right now, Penrith is trying to win that. They can see it. They can see it just down the road. That minor premiership, Shedheads. They can see it. Just a little bit over the horizon, but they kind of see the glow of it, right? Right there. But they're only 2 points ahead of the Roosters. We know they're going to finish in the top 4. But they've got to stay ahead. Because teams are right there. And then you've got the Waz. This team right now is sitting in 3rd. But they've gotta stay in that top 4. And that's not going to be easy to do. And this game is so important for them to get that victory to stay in that top 4. Because if they lose, the Dolphins are creeping around in the 5. The Sharks are right there to jump over them. So that game has so much riding on it. The physicality on this game is going to be off the charts. Because it's going to be who can bully the other one, right? And James Fisher-Harris is so ready to take on his former club. It is. If you like physical, it's gonna be fun. It's just gonna be one of those matches. Then you have the nightcap, and a game that might be just as mouthwatering as Game 1, and that is the Bulldogs versus the Chooks. And what makes this one so fun is you have two teams kind of on two opposite sides. One fighting to stay in the 8, who just got in there with their victory last week in the demolishing. So they should thank the Roosters of the Cowboys. And then you have the other one that is trying to take that minor premiership away from the Panthers. But both of these teams are playing such good footy right now. The Chooks have won 6 in a row. The Dogs have won 6 of 7. You've got two teams that are playing for different things, but playing for the same championship, but that both have to get victories, right? Yes, one of them's a little bit more important than the other because, the Dogs are a loss away from falling out of the 8, but it is going to be some epic TV in the standpoint that the result is going to have huge impact on both of these teams going forward. Because if the Chooks lose, the Waz and the Sharks are right there. And if the Dogs lose, they're right now neck and neck with the most up and down team in the competition in the North Queensland Cowboys. And who knows what they're going to do next. So, again, we're getting to that part of the season where you have two teams that just have so much to play for. And this game is going to really say what they're going to do going forward. To me, this match comes down... The first match is all about brutality and who's going to impose their will on the other one. This match is going to be a couple of things. One, can the Chooks continue to Ferrari everybody, right? Because right now that offense clicked. And it's kind of tough to put together back-to-back weeks when you just blow somebody off the park. So to me, can the Dogs slow down that Chooks offense, right? Is the defense as strong? Are they ready to go dogs of war to do what they need to do defensively to shut down, a team that's just full of stars, right? And then when you look at the Bulldogs, do they have the strike to go with the Chooks? Because, like I said, since Critter got in the 6, everything seems to be flowing, right? I think just as important for them than Crichton is Big Billy Kickow. This guy has come back from injury, and the fortunes of the team has changed since he's come back as well. So, will they continue to play the offensive game that really has had a lot of us surprised? Because I've been surprised. I didn't think the Dogs were going to get back in the position they're in right now, but they're there, right? And I think they pulled it far enough away from the Raiders, possibly. We got a lot of games left still, or 4 or 5, right? So things can change week in and week out. But it's going to be interesting. It is, like I said, I'm not looking forward to my Friday because I am going to be sleep deprived quite a bit. But it's going to be worth it because these games are going to be off the hook. But I will ask you guys, please, please, please say a prayer for Mrs. Shedadamus because the bed will stay cold all night. Besides our beautiful little dog, Sandy. Because I will not be in it. she will be up probably greeting me as I'm going to bed. So that is what it's like to be your Shedadamus. So please don't envy the situation I'm in right now, living over here in the divided states and loving the game that I love. Now, as we go into round 23, Shedheads, we have it kicking off. We have another Queensland Derby to kick it off on Thursday between the Cows and the Titans. And which Cowboys team are we going to get? I have no idea. I know it'll be exciting, but I have no idea what we're going to get. But I'm taking them. I'm taking the Cowboys over the Titans. I think they're going to find a way to get that. Lachlan Ilias is now in due to injury for the Titans, and I just think the Cows will put on a performance after being embarrassed by the Chooks. So I got the Cows winning that one on Thursday. Friday, the doubleheader. And I couldn't pick right up to this point. I just left it blank on the sheet right here. I'm taking the Panthers. And I've been going back and forth. I wanted to take the Waz, but I think the Panthers find a way to win another close game. But I think they go to the Rumble Isles and they get the victory. I don't know. I really will admit this. I was leaning towards the Waz, but I'm going to go with the Panthers to somehow get that victory. And then for the nightcap, the Bulldogs versus the Chooks. I think the Roosters just have too much. I think the Roosters now know who they are, and I think they go in and they take care of business and really make it tough on the Bulldogs now going forward, because next week it is the Bulldogs versus the Rabbitohs, and the loser of that one could be in big trouble. But I've got the Roosters over the Bulldogs. Saturday, Sea Eagles versus the Storm. Yes, it's not the Battle of Brookvale. It is in Melbourne. But I'm taking the Sea Eagles to get that victory over the Storm and get Fosball back on track. Broncos versus the Dolphins. I know that's how big that Friday night is. We didn't even talk about this rivalry. Indigenous Round is beyond producing for all of us. And like I said, I've talked for the last few years about how important Indigenous Round is and how it's one of my favorite rounds. But my God, Indigenous Round is maybe the best round of the competition this year with these matchups, these head-to-heads. But I'm taking the Dolphins. I'm taking the Finns. The Broncos, I hate to say this, have nothing to play for but pride. Adam Reynolds is out. I'm going to go with the Dolphins. I think they get this one. They have a point to prove. I think they're tired of people saying, this is our house, if you know what I mean. I got the Dolphins over the Broncos. And finally, to end out Super Saturday, Eels versus the Rabbitohs. Bunnies have players back on the docket. I'm taking the Bunnies over the Eels. Sunday, Knights versus the Raiders kick it off down in the nation's capital. This is another tough one for me because I really think the Green Machine have the potential, but I think there's something about this Knights club and Justin Holbrook that's got him just humming. I'm going with the Knights over the Raiders. And for the last match of the round, Sharks versus the Dragons, the Derby, I'm taking the Sharkies. I know the Dragons have played tough week in and week out, and they look like they're getting better week in and week out, but I got the Sharks. I think they just know what they're playing for right now, and I think Fitzy's going to be into them to stay focused. So let's go over the picks again. We got the Cows, we've got the Panthers, we got the Chooks, we got the Sea Eagles, we got the Finns, we got the Rabbitohs, we've got the Knights, and we've got the Sharks. And our gun of the round, man, it could have gone to about 4 or 5 different guys. I'm going with Hollywood Walker. 3 tries, 12 for 13 on conversions, 143 running meters, 1 line break, 4 line break assists, 3 try assists, 3 tackle breaks, 8 tackles made, and 162 kicking meters. I'm telling you, that little manicured beard is playing some good footy. And like I said, he is just a different player since State of Origin. So, Shedheads, like I said, hook your heart monitors up. Stay strong. Don't drink too much caffeine going into Friday. I'm going to try to back off a little bit. But we've got an incredible weekend coming up. I hope you're able to enjoy it. I'm looking forward to it. And like I said, say that prayer for Mrs. Shedadamus. But stay out of trouble. Don't get caught. Until next week, my friends. This has been Outside the Sheds. I'm your host, Corey Jackson, your Shedadamus. See ya!
And that was another fantastic episode of Outside the Sheds with Corey Jackson, talking all things NRL and all things sports. So please remember to smash the subscribe button and share this with your family and friends and show them what Australian sport is all about.